There is an inner world, one just as real as the one outside. It has its own climate, its own seasons, and we spend a lifetime navigating this landscape, often without a map, just learning its terrain through experience alone.
At the very center of this terrain, there is a fundamental force. It's something that colors every perception, that guides every action. But what really is an emotion?
Well, the first real insight into this doesn't come from philosophy, but from physiology, a mechanical truth that reveals the experience to be, well, something surprisingly brief. You see, when a response is triggered in the body, chemicals are released. It's a purely physical event, a rush that courses through your system. And then, within just 90 seconds, that chemical tide recedes. The body flushes it out. The physiological moment, it just passes.
So if the physical event is that brief, how does a feeling last for hours or even days? Well, after those 90 seconds are up, the mind begins its work. It replays the trigger, it analyzes, it judges, and with each one of those thoughts, that chemical cascade can be triggered all over again. The feeling is fed by a story, and that story keeps the wave in motion long after it should have returned to the sea.
And this leads to an even deeper observation about the nature of these stories and the architecture of the mind that builds them.
We tend to assume that we react to the world exactly as it is, but more often than not, we're reacting to our interpretation of it. Our minds are constantly building expectations, these frames through which we view everything that happens. Our whole experience is filtered through these cognitive structures.
Think about it. An event, in and of itself, is neutral. It's just a fact. The suffering that we call disappointment, it seems to arise from the space between that fact and the expectation we were holding on to. The pain appears to live inside that gap.
And in this lies a pretty profound realization. By altering the cognitive frame, by seeing a setback not as some final verdict, but as simple feedback, the feeling itself actually transforms. The external facts haven't changed at all, but the internal experience, it shifts entirely. So much of our suffering, it seems, is a product of our own internal architecture.
So what is the nature of this architecture? If you just listen quietly, patterns start to emerge, and often they're repetitive, circular, and incredibly self-critical. This is the classic pattern of rumination. The mind gets caught in a loop, just replaying a past error, a misspoken word over and over. It's not problem solving. That moves forward towards a resolution. No, this is a circle. It generates no new insight. It just deepens the original groove.
There's this deep-seated feeling of being under constant scrutiny. It's sometimes called the spotlight effect. This assumption that everyone else is highly attuned to our every fault. We exist at the center of our own world, so we just assume we're at the center of theirs. But they, of course, are at the center of their own.
That imagined jury, that silent audience judging our every move, its source is internal. The critical voice is our own. Now, realizing this doesn't necessarily silence the voice, but it does correctly identify its location. So, to see the machinery is the first step. The next is to create some space, to find a different vantage point from which to observe it all.
The pronouns we use in our internal dialogue, they aren't arbitrary. They actually define a relationship to our own experience. The word I creates a fusion between the self and the emotion. I am angry. The two become one.
A subtle shift from "I am struggling" to speaking your own name creates this powerful psychological distance. It's a linguistic change that actually corresponds with a shift in brain activity, moving away from emotional reactivity and toward a more objective state. It allows you to view yourself with the quiet compassion that we so often reserve only for others.
With this understanding of the mind, we can start to look at the nature of real enduring strength, a strength found not in avoiding difficulty, but in moving right through it.
You know, there's a difference between resilience, which is bouncing back to your original state, and something called anti-fragility. An anti-fragile system actually grows stronger through disorder. Bones become denser under load. The immune system is fortified by exposure. It seems psychological strength operates on the very same principle.
This completely reframes the entire relationship with hardship. Stress stops being something you just have to endure. It becomes the necessary stimulus for growth. The challenge itself contains the raw material for a greater capacity.
This is named for Admiral Jim Stockdale, who endured years as a prisoner of war. The paradox describes a really unique psychological state. It rejects both blind optimism and hopeless despair. It's the ability to hold two opposing thoughts at the same time.
a sober, realistic assessment of your current difficulty, alongside an unbreakable faith in an eventual positive outcome.
So this whole exploration of the inner landscape, it isn't about finding a way to prevent the rain. The storms will always come. It's about understanding the nature of the storm, the nature of the mind that perceives it, and maybe, just maybe, finding a capacity for grace within the experience itself.